Hello, this is Brian Rowe with Mythic MTG Tech doing a video on how to get into EDH for under $100 in mono white, also known as what I would do to upgrade the mono white commander deck that just came out from Wizards of the Coast. But before I jump in, I've got a big announcement. I am going to be writing some articles over on Mox Boarding House's website. You guys probably know Mox Boarding House a little bit better as Card Kingdom, as they're one of the major online retailers. Their physical location is a few blocks from my house here. I'm really happy to be working with them. I have a companion article up that goes with this video over on the website. The link is right there. I'll also put it down in the description. But it has links to be able to purchase any of the cards that I'm talking about and a little bit more explanation over some of my thoughts behind this stuff. So let's jump right in. I really wanted to make this practical so that you could use the method that I'm upgrading this deck for any other deck out there. These are the 6 tips that I've really got. Number 1 is respect the curve. Number 2 is add utility lands. Number 3 is cut one-use cards or overcosted cards. Number 4 is add reusable threats and answers. 5 is options for tutors, and 6 is add a bomb or two. You want 1 or 2 things that are just going to jump out as amazing to you for the deck. Let's start with the curve. You could do an entire video on mana curves, and I probably will at some point explaining mana curves, but the pre-constructed decks have a curve to them, where you're going to have a few 1-drops, a few more 2-drops, more 3-drops. Now, this curve that we're looking at here is based off of a standard deck. You can move this curve over some when it comes to EDH so that your top end of your curve is up around 8 or 9, but you still want the least number of giant cards. And that's one of the things that I think this deck does, is it has a few too many of those high end and not enough of that mid-range, or at least not enough ramp to get to that high end to cast those amazingly broken spells. So here is the deck laid out with the curve in mind. You've got your 1s, 2s, 3s. There's 2 full columns of 3s there. There's 4s, 5s, 6s on up. And then you've got your X spells, you've got your commander, you've got all of the land. So this is kind of the layout of the curve. And when I pull things out of a deck like this, I try to put things back in that same kind of curve spot. Although here, intentionally, I am trying to lower the curve a little bit and add a little bit more ramp to increase the performance of the deck. When I talk about ramp, I've got a whole video on ramp specifically, but ramp is so important if you're going to cast giant spells. Your other option is just have a very low curve and try to kill people very early. I like the more interactive casting giant spells in EDH perspective. These are some of the best ones in white. Caged Sun is a little bit high casting cost, but it really kind of hits a token theme also. Endless Horizon, make sure that you hit your land drop every single turn. Technically, it is not a ramp spell, but it is very similar. Land Tax is the expensive version of that at 1 casting cost. And Basalt Monolith is just incredible. It's going to jump you from 3 mana up to 7 mana the following turn. I definitely recommend it if you're cast in some of those larger things. Lands are another really important thing to look at. Most of the pre-constructed decks are very, very heavy on basic lands. There are some wonderful lands out there for upgrading the deck. My favorites being the Steppe here, because it allows you to get through a creature and do a lot of damage, especially if the board state is kind of clogged up. Windbriss Heights is also just an crazy good card that could be in any white EDH deck. It's super cheap right now because it was in the Modern Masters event deck. And Core Haven is often overlooked. It is a different version of Maze of Ith, but it's only about $8 instead of $24. I would cut things that are super high casting or that don't really have that heavy impact when they hit the board, and they're lower casting cost 1-time spells. Like Midnight Haunting, so a 1-time spell that's just going to put out 2 creatures. I like a reusable source of extra creatures in EDH. The Midnight Haunting is really good in a super competitive spiky environment because you get something out of it, a surprise at instant speed. But if you're playing more casually, you don't have the extra come from behind later advantage with it. I also would look at Bonehorde. It's one of the weaker equipments out there. It really requires a real late game attitude towards it. It can be really dead early on. And I'm not saying that these cards are bad, they're just not necessarily right for this strategy. White Mane Lion really needs to be in a enters the battlefield deck where every single creature, or at least almost all of them, have an enter the battlefield effect so that you can use that. This is a little more of a token based effect deck, so I don't think you get as much utility out of it as you could. My fourth suggestion here is look at reusable threats. Stonecloaker is amazing. Stonecloaker can shut down those reanimator decks super quickly. Stonehewer Giant is a lot like a Stoneforge Mystic, but it's reusable every turn, and the equipment gets attached to a creature. This guy can dominate a board. Weathered Wayfarer is incredible. Lets you search up any land out there. I often like this guy better than land tax because you're able to get your utility lands. Mirrodin Crusader is another house in EDH. Pro black and pro green matter a lot. Double strike is one of the best things you can put on a creature that's going to be carrying equipment. Very reasonably priced right now at about $5. Now, tutors are very controversial in the EDH world. Some people love them, other people hate them. If I'm playing a competitive deck, you've got to have tutors. If you're playing a casual deck, you can leave tutors out. This particular deck is heavily based, though, on equipment, and I see some value in putting in one or two equipment-specific tutors. Steel Shaper's Gift is very good, and it puts the equipment directly into hand. Quest for the Holy Relic is amazing, and it's only 50 cents. Enlightened Tutor is really the expensive one to consider. It does put the equipment on top of your library or any other artifact you're going for, but it's instant speed, so you can wait till the last of your opponents is done and figure out exactly what answer you need to put on top of it. Now, the last suggestion I have here is choose a high-end card to add to the deck. Some type of a bomb, something that is just incredible. It's going to be your favorite card to bring into the deck. Now, you're going to break the budget if you add all of these. I would choose one of them, and if I could only put one of these in, it would be Batterskull. Batterskull fits the theme of the deck so well. Batterskull is very difficult for people to kill because of the 3 return it to hand. Gaining life matters. Vigilance takes your creature with a bunch of equipment on it and allows it to play defense also. It's just really, really powerful. I've won entire games because of Batterskull. Any of the swords would be a wonderful addition to this deck. They run about $10 to $50. They have different effects of how competitive they are or how important they are in EDH. My 2 favorites in EDH are not the 2 most expensive. They are Feast and Famine, which is about $15 to $20 because it untaps your land and basically doubles your mana while also discarding a card from someone, and Sword of Light and Shadow because it returns creatures from your graveyard and gives you some life. Sword of Fire and Ice is the most expensive of them. It draws a card and does 2 damage. Drawing a card is always nice, but the 2 damage is not always as powerful in EDH as it is in other formats. Sword of Body and Mind can be a nice alternative win condition in milling people, and Sword of War and Peace can gain you a lot of life if you're able to hold cards in hand. Sword of War and Peace is probably the weakest in EDH. Umata's Jite is the sword before swords. This is the powerhouse, amazing broken equipment that really had to be scaled down when they made swords. Swords have to hit your opponent. Jite, your creature just has to do damage. It has 3 effects, +2/+2 to the creature, helps keep it alive often or kill other things. -1/-1 is great for killing other people's commanders, and gaining life means that even if they destroy it with a bunch of counters on it, you get something out of it. Card is just incredible. Last one that I would strongly consider is Stoneforge Mystic. I don't think she's an absolute must for the deck, but the theme here is just so good. It's really, the whole deck is based around what if Stoneforge Mystic became a Planeswalker? What would that look like? So the theme of this card is just incredible. It's also one of those eternal cards that you can put in any deck in which it's legal. It's only not legal in Modern, and you'll be happy playing it. this card can win games by itself by shutting counterspells down, because the put equipment into play gets around counterspells entirely, and being able to get the right answer is very, very nice. Thanks. This has been Brian Rowe with Mythic MTG Tech. Thank you, everybody who's out there on Patreon supporting the channel. I greatly appreciate it. Also, thank you to Mock Supporting House, Card Kingdom, for the chance to write over on your guys' website. I look forward to doing some more articles over there.